Hi again then guys, and welcome to another Special Projects Replica build. And in this particular replica build we've gone for something a lot simpler than the replicas that I'd usually do. Usually they involve at least some amount of body modification, wheel modification, fancy paint jobs which are difficult to find from different cars, various complex tune setups, gear ratios, etc. This one is not like that at all. This is actually possibly even the simplest one I've ever done, next to perhaps the updated Delta and Audi Quattros. And basically this replica is for the Nissan GT-R, as you can see, and as you will have of course seen, this is for the new GT-R, the 2017 shape, featured predominantly in orange in its unveiled form. And although we have some available specs for this car, we don't have all of them. I wasn't able to find the gear ratios, for instance. Official performance specs haven't been announced yet even, and also the weight has not been announced. However, we do have the power, we have a pretty close approximation of the colour of the first released version, and also we do know that the new GT-R is lighter than the existing model. Now we don't know how much by, but it uses lighter construction than the previous GT-R, so I've taken off a little bit of weight. I've tried to keep it realistic as to what it could actually be like. So overall this is kind of like what I did with my Huayra BC test vehicle build, which looking back actually turned out to be very accurate, although I didn't know at the time. So as far as the colour, because there's no real need to go over to the visual tuning garage, I've left the body completely stock. I've even left the wheels stock because they look the most accurate to the new car. So purely for the colour, if you want the particular colour that I've gone for, it's called Atomic Orange Metallic Tint Coat, and it comes from the Corvette ZR1 of the 6th generation. It looks very, very close to the actual orange. It's about as close as you can get actually on the game. So there's no real need to go over, of course, to the visual tuning garage for that. So now we'll go straight over to the mechanical garage and then of course take it out to a circuit to see how it performs. Now this build isn't as PP rounded off as I would usually like it to be, say 550 or 560, but at the same time 555 PP is interesting, it's pretty unique. Now I've gone for sports soft tyres because this is of course more of a production street-based build and you don't want it to feel too good. Same thing we've done with the brakes as the tyres. You don't want it to feel too good, so we've left those stock. As far as the suspension, we've lowered the ride height by 5mm, front and rear. Springs we've increased to 1250 and 625. The dampers and anti-roll we've left on 3. We've got neutral camber and tow because they're just not needed on this car. As I said in the outset of the video, we don't currently know the gear ratios for this car, so I've opted to leave the gearbox standard because the gears will probably be fairly similar to the existing models. It may get a 7 or 8 speed gearbox, but obviously we can't replicate that anyway. As far as the diff and centre diff and prop and clutch and flywheel, I've opted to leave them all stock. Now the clutch, flywheel and prop shaft, I've left those stock because, as I usually would, because that's just not necessary for a production car. I left the centre diff as it is because you don't really need to change that, but for the diff itself, I did actually change that. But the difference that it made wasn't really necessary. The standard diff setup on this car feels good enough. So although you can change that if you want to, you don't really need to. As far as the power, that is one of the things that we do actually know for sure about the new model, that it has 565 horsepower. Now, if you do want this car to have the same power, but at a higher PP, say close to 600 even, what you can do, and you can do this with any car that can be upgraded, fit all the parts, and then reduce the power down to 565 anyway. So you'll have the production horsepower, but your PP will be significantly higher, and you'll also have significantly more torque. That's kind of unnecessary though, so I opted not to do that. I just gave it an oil change, then reduced it down to 99.3% power. As far as the weight, as I said, We do know from Nissan that the new car will be lighter. At the same time, we don't know what that weight will be. So I've opted to take off a little bit of weight, but at the same time, I've tried to keep it realistic and reasonable as to what it could actually be. So the standard car in Black Edition form weighs about 1730 kilos. So I've just sliced off 40 kilos of excess weight to round off that PP, and also to lose a bit of weight because the car is lighter according to Nissan, the new one. So you want a stage 1 weight reduction, and then I've added a 151 kilo ballast, which I've left exactly in the middle. You don't have to do that, of course. You could go for whatever weight you want because your guess is as good as mine. I just wanted to take off some but keep it realistic. So as I said, this is one of the simplest replicas I've done so far, partially based on the facts that we know, partially based on speculation. Overall, we'll have to see how accurate it is. But now let's of course take it out to a track to see what it's capable of. Now overall, the differences that we've made to this car aren't massive anyway, so don't expect to pick up this car and immediately beat everything around the track. That being said, the differences that we have made make it appropriate to the new shape model, at least as close as we can currently surmise, and it's definitely a fun car to drive. So for those of you who are GT-R fans and who'd like to feel what the 2017 shape model could feel like when it will definitely end up on the game, it's one of those cars that's pretty much guaranteed, then obviously I hope you find it fun and potentially competitive. It's kind of awkward at the 555 PP level, but maybe you will get the opportunity to race it at that level. So if you'd like to keep up with other replica builds like this, sometimes speculative builds, which this is to some degree, then be sure to slap subscribe down below for that. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.